Tal Kadosh, Boker Or, Daf Yomi, Masechet, Avodah Zarah Daf, 781, says the Gemara, right? Bishlema. Right now, we just brought down an entire Yesod, a machloka between Rabbi and Rabbi Yehuda. What happens if you gave something to a worksman, or let's say craftsman, and he changed? So, for example, you gave him tzemed, and instead of doing white, he did, or instead of doing red, he did black. Instead of black, he did red. So he changed it. So Rabbi just says, give the money of the tzemed, and that's it. And then, right, the tzemed tzavua you take for yourself. That means the craftsman keeps the tzemed. Rabbi Yehuda comes and he says, what are you talking about? He says it all depends. He says he doesn't take schar maleh. He's on the tachtona. What does that mean? If the shevach is going to be more, right, than the yitziah, so therefore notel lo et yitziah. Right, which means that he only gives him the lower hand, meaning the guy gets the lower end of the stick. So Rabbi Yosef turned his face because he was upset. Now says the Gemara, I understand that the halacha Rabbi Yoshua ben Kulcha. I needed to say that's a psak. Why? I would have thought to say which means that we always go like the Rabbim. Remember that the Chachamim argued on Rishon ben Kurcha, and therefore I would have said halachas like Chachamim. So when I come and I tell you halachas like Rishon ben Kurcha, I needed to tell you Kamash Malan the halachas like Rishon ben Kurcha, right? The halachas like a yachid. But the halachas Rabbi Yehuda, why did I need it? Pshita, obviously. Why? It's a machloket ve'achar kach stam. When you have a machloket in a mishnah, and then afterwards you learn the halacha like one of them in a stam, the hilchata is like a stam. Meaning like this, I come and I tell you two opinions. Opinion A, Rabbi Meir, opinion B, Rabbi Yehuda. So it's a machloket in a mishnah. And then later on, you're checking the mishnah, and then later on, I come and you only have, and he comes and he says, later on, right, you come and you see, right, that what? That it's a stam. What does it mean a stam? Right? He comes and he says hilchata kistam. So therefore, machloket b'Baba Kama, and the stam is a Metzia. Meaning in Baba Kama was this machloket of the Mishnah. However, though in Baba Metzia it was a stam Mishnah. Tetran kol meshane yado latachtona lechol hachozer bo yado latachtona. Meaning we had this sugya. We had this already in Baba Kama and then Baba Metzia. In Baba Kama we brought down a machloket between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. In Baba Metzia, we brought down stam like Rabbi Yehuda. So if it's pashut the halachas like Rabbi Yehuda, because when you have a machloket in a mishnah, and then later on you have a stam, so therefore it's going to be the halacha, right? That he comes and he says, that the halacha he comes and he says, right? He comes and he says that you always say have the lower hand. So says the Gemara Rav Huna, according to Rav Huna, en seder la mishnah. There's no order in the Mishnayot. Dika lemeimar, because I would say stam tana bereisha. Maybe it was a stam and a machloket. Meaning, whoever told you that it was a machloket and then a stam, maybe it was the other way around. There's no order in the Mishnayot, and it's a stam, and then there was a machloket. No. Stam just means when I'm satam, that means that's how we pass it. Now the thing is like this: if I taught you, right? It's like stam v'yeshomnim, right? If I tell you right now there's a machloket, and then later on I come and I tell you the halacha, like this. Imagine right now today you come and you ask me, Rabbi, what's halacha in A? I tell you some machloket, A and B. Tomorrow you come and you say, Rabbi, what's halacha? I tell you A. What does that mean? That's how we paskin. A. Yesterday I told you machloket. Yeah, there's a machloket, but I'm pasking like A. That's a machloket v'achar stam. But what happens if it was opposite? What happens if I told you stam? You ask me today, I tell you A. You ask me tomorrow, I tell you it's a machloket. So now we don't. It doesn't mean that we pass on the Kain anymore. So what's the order? So that's the question. So he says here, maybe Rav Huna thought that there's no order to the Mishnah, and therefore maybe it was a stam, and then afterwards it was machloket. So says the Gemara, if so, you could always say that then. Kol machloket, kol stam, say the same thing. There's no order to the Mishnayot. So says the Gemara, Rav Huna comes and he says, Kilo amnina. And when do we say that there's no order to the Mishnayot? Bechad Masechta, in one Masechet. But betrei Masechta, we do say it. Rav Yosef, but according to Rav Yosef, the entire Nizikin is one Masechet. Meaning Baba Kama, Baba Metzia, Baba Batra is like one book. Yeah. That means all the Shalosh Babot are considered like one book of Nizikin. So because of that, it's all one entity. And that's why they're all called Babas. You have Baba Kama, the first Baba, Baba Metzia, the middle Baba, and Baba Batra, the last Baba, but they're all Babot. It's all the same concept. So ever since it's all the same concept, that's why he comes and he says, I thought that there was not going to be a seder in the Mishnah. Fine, but maybe there's no seder, maybe there's no order. Meaning, if you could say the one is like this one is that, it doesn't matter. There's no order. That's what we're saying. That's what according to Rabbi Yosef. Kula nezikin chada Masechta, right on the learning side of it. Yeah, I'm saying it's all v'ibait ema. No, that's nothing to do with it because that's not a Mishnah, right? V'ibait ema. If you want, you could answer mishum dektani la gabi hilchat psikta. You could say that to do with halachot psukot. Kol hameshane yado latachtona v'chol chozer bo yado latachtona, which means that this is like a halacha psuka. So for just like Haorah Shniya is halacha psuka, so too that nobody argued on it, so too meaning like this. If I'm going to tell you halacha psuka, you can't compare that when there's going to be machlokot. I give you halacha psuka. Kol hameshane, right, is yado latachtona v'chol chozer. So therefore, if I come and I tell you chol chozer bo yado latachtona, so too kol hameshane yado latachtona. When you come and you retract, you always have the lower hand. Because when you come and you retract on something, that's it. It's going to be a different halacha. So he says now like this. Tanu Rabbana, we learned to the Braita. Yeah. Tanu Rabbana. Lo yomar adam lechavero, hanideh she'ta'amodi min la'erev. A person should not come and say, you want to come to me tonight? It's talking about on Shabbat, and he's going to tell him that for Motzei Shabbat. Because they both know that they want to talk about Shabbat, meaning they want to talk about business. Meaning I come to you, I know that you're I don't know what, you're a craftsman, you're a barber, you're I don't know what, right? So I come and I tell you, by the way, you want to come tonight to my house? Now, I didn't tell you anything asur, but I know exactly what I want, right? I know you know exactly what you want. So he comes and he says, "Lo yomar adam lechavero ani resh ta'amod mi v'la'erev." Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha omer adam lechavero ani resh ta'amod. You're allowed to say that. So Amar Rechal Amar Yochanan halacha is like Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha that you're allowed to come and say it. That means even though we both know the kavanah, since you didn't say it with furash, there's no isur. Yeah. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in the Braita. Hanishal lechacham. If you come and you ask a chacham on something, whether it's tameh or tahor, the timeh, lo yishal lechacham v'itaer. Don't ask another chacham to say it's tahor. Chacham ve'asar, yishal lechacham ve'atid. Don't come. Meaning, once you come and you ask the rabbi a psak, that's it. Why? Because it's it. You can't start looking, shopping for other rabbis. Some people, they love that. They don't even bother going. They know exactly what to ask who. Yeah, what to ask who. Right? Ayush shnayim. If there's going to be two chachamim, echad metameh ve'echad metaher, echad oser ve'echad matir, im haya echad mehem gadol mechavero b'chom haminyan v'nelach acharav, go after the gadol mechavero. V'im lav, and if not, halach achar machmir. You have to go after the machmir. Rabbi Yoshua ben Korcha omer, b'shel Torah halach achar machmir. B'shel sofrim halach achar mekel. Depends if it's Doraita or Rabbanan. If it's Doraita, you have to go, right? You have to go to the Mahmid. If you're going to go to the Safrim, halach achara mekel. Amar of Yosef says of Yosef, hilchata is like Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha. That means it all depends. If it's Doraita, you go after the Mahmid. If it's Rabbanan, you go after the Mekel. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned to the Braita. Vekulan shechazru bahen. Right? If right now we're going to all the Gazlanim and Amei Aratzot, that they are chozer b'tshuva. Right? Any gezel and Amei Aratzot shechazru b'tshuva, en mekablim אותה לעולמית. We do not accept them whatsoever. דברי רבי מאיר, רבי יהודה אומר, חזרו בהם במטמוניות, אין מקבלים אותם. If they did תשובה בסתר, you're not מקבל. But if they did it בפרהסיה, you are מקבל. that means ממש, you've got a gazlan, right? You've got a me'aratzot, right? So therefore, what's going to happen is, right, you've got a problem, right? So therefore, he comes and he says, in such a case, right, it's going to be, what are you supposed to do? So, ika de amni. So we come and we say, if they did it baseter, so we're going to accept them. Right? Daf Zayin Amud 7b. He says, right, you don't accept them. Right? You're always going to accept them doing teshuvah. That even the shovavim can do teshuvah. He comes and he says, right? He says, right? And like Rabbi Shimon. That basically, what do we just say? You're always going to be mekablim, right? Why? Because obviously they could always do teshuvah. So therefore, since it's a shuvanim shovavim, so therefore their teshuvah is going to be, how do you call it? Is always going to be accepted. Okay, Mishnah. Ma? There's a Mishnah of Zayin Amud 7b. Mishnah. The Bishmael Omer. Bishmael says, This is a very beautiful Mishnah that we're talking about now. What happens afterwards? So Rabbi Shmuel says, Shlosha lifnehem u'shlosha la'acharehem asur. It's 3 days before and 3 days afterwards. Chachamim say no. Lifnei edem asur, la'achar edem mutar. Before is prohibited, afterwards is permitted. So says the Gemara. Amar Rav Tachlifi Barav Dimi Shmuel. It says Shmuel, Yom Rishon, every single Sunday is their holiday. Yeah? So he says, Divrei Bishmael Leolam Asur. So according to Bishmael, then, it's always going to be Asur. Let's think about it. The day of the holiday for sure is Asur. 3 days afterwards means Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. 3 days before would mean Saturday, Friday, Thursday. So technically then, you're never allowed to do business. Because if you do 3 days before and 3 days afterwards, so you're never allowed to do business. Yeah? Again, this is only in Shitat Rabbi Shmuel. And again, this is only, right, as we mentioned before. So he says, right, so obviously, it doesn't make sense. So obviously, we don't pass him like that. Chachamim come and they say, no, lifnei eden is asur. La'achar eden is going to be mutar. So says the Gemara, Chachamim is like Tanna Kama then. But Tanna Kama in the previous Mishnah already told you it's only going to be 3 days before, right? He never told you anything about afterwards. So says the Gemara, hen belo edenika benayu. The machloke between Tanna Kama and Chachamim is, do you say that it's 2 days or 3 days? Tanna Kama savar, Tanna Kama holds it's 3 days without the Yom Ha'ed. Hen belo eden. For Rabbanan Batray Sabre, but the Rabbanan actually hold hen ve'eden, it's only 2 days. It's the 2 days plus the Chag, so it's 3 days. Meaning the machloket Tanna Kama and Tanna Kama and Chachamim was afterwards, for sure there's no problem. But it's only going to be a problem of the only machloket is only going to be before, but the only machloket between them is it 2 days or 3 days before?
2 plus 1 or 3?
Exactly. Do you say 2 plus 1, which is equal 3, or 3 plus 1?
We also argue about the time that it starts for 3 days?
No. Well, obviously, because it's an extra day.
Because for us, it starts at night. For them, they have
Fine. We didn't speak about that. 1 second. So, if you want, you could answer. Nasav and Natan, you could know also the difference between Tanna Kama and Chachamim is Nasav and Natan. Tanna Kama Savar, Tanna Kama holds Nasav and Natan is mutar. For Rabbanan Batray Savar, right, that Nasav and Natan is going to be Asur, which actually was a machlok between. Who was this machlok between? Rabbi Yochanan and the Shakish. Yeah? Third answer. The Shmuel coming out. The machlok between them is in Shmuel. Ta'amar Shmuel bagola en isur ala biyom edam. He says in Chutzaretz, it's only prohibited the Yom Edam. So he says why? He says because Avodah Kochavim in Chutzaretz, they're not as strong as the Gemara says in Masechet Chulin. So Avodah Kochavim in Chutzaretz is not the real Avodah Kochavim. So therefore, because of that, we're not going to suspect only because of, right, maybe because of Harvacha or whatever it is. So therefore, it's only going to be Yom Edam. Yom Edam means only the day of their Chag, nothing before. Tanna Kama itle the Shmuel. So Tanna Kama holds like Shmuel, and therefore this halacha only applies to Eretz Yisrael. For Rabbanan Batray doesn't hold the Shmuel, so therefore it also applies in Chutzaretz. If you want, you can answer another answer. Nachuma Madi kabenai. What is Nachuma Madi? He says the Tanya was learned in a Braita. Nachuma Madi Omer. Eno asur al yom echad lifnei eden. According to Shtat Nachuma Madi, it's only 1 day before their Eden. Tanna Kama let le Nachuma Madi, so Tanna Kama doesn't hold on Nachuma Madi. Rabbanan Batray, they do hold of Nachum Hamadi. Yeah? That means basically they said it's only going to be 1 day. So says the Gemara, how could that be? Gufa, Nachum Hamadi Omer, Eno asur al yom echad lifnei eden. Amru lo, ishtaka davav v'lo ne'eman. He says, ishtaka, lo yetza mipi adam le'olam. What are you talking about now? Right? So he says, right? That means never say that. So he says, Vayika Rabbanan Batrai, they come out. He says, what are you talking about? If you have Rabbanan Batrai, that they go like Nachum Hamadi, what's the problem? So he says, no. Who is Chachamim? Nachum Hamadihu. Right? So therefore, we don't hold all that. The Tanya Idach, we also learned in the Braita, Nachum Hamadi mochrim lehem sus zachar zaken b'milchama. You're allowed to sell them a sus zachar zaken during the milchama. Yeah? Okay, we're going to speak about it in the Mishnah later on. So he says, Amrulo, Nishtakadava, what are you talking about? Don't do that. Vaika ben beterada kakavata. He says, well, you have ben beterada, holds like him. Tetram ben beterada matir besus. Ben beterada did permit in a horse. So he says, ben beterada lo maflik ben zechrim nekevot. Ben beterada did not make a differentiation between a zachar and nekeva. Ihu, Nachum Hamadi, he did make a differentiation between zechrim and nekevot. So Krabanan Svirale, they hold the chachamim that you're not allowed to sell them susim. Right? So he says, Ulfi Rabbanan, according to Rabbanan, Nishtakadava lo nemar. don't even say it. Don't even mention it. So Tanya, we learned in a Braita also, right? Another machloket. Nachum Amadi Omer, Hashevet mit'aser. Hashevet is a type of a vegetable that has alim, right? It's got zmorot and it's got zraim. So I don't know how they say it in English, but basically it's a type of vegetable that has, the how do you call this? Seeds. It's got branches and it's got leaves. Mitaser, you're chayav ma'aser. Zera, right? So he says you're chayav ma'aser until you put it in the zera. When it's still going to be a yerek, until it's going to be zirzin, which has got the zirin, which is zmurot. Amru nishtaka davav lo nema. We don't hold of it. So he says vayikar Rabbi Elazar de kavate. You got Rabbi Elazar the holds like him. He says the Tanah Rabbi Eliezer Omer. Rabbi Eliezer that says hashev mitaseret zera v'yarek zirin. Meaning you could take off the maaser in any stage of the process, whether it's going to be zera or the yarak, right, the yerek, or the zirin. So answers the Gemara, hatam b'digunita. What are you talking about? Shevet, which is gadel in the gina, which is eaten that way. So therefore he comes and he says that's why it's all considered gemar pri. But he was talking about that it's going to be grown, so it's not gemar pri until the end result. So Amale Ravacha bar Menyum le'Abaye, Gavra Rabba Ata me'atrin. There was a very big guy that came, right? So he says, Kol minta aman, anything that he said, Amar Amrule, they told him, you should never say that. Amari kachada da avdinan kavate. Is there anything that we do like him? Like like this Nachum Amadi? Is there anything that we do like him? Titania Nachum Amadi Omer, Sholadam tzrachav shomea tefillah. You could ask for whatever you want in shomea tefillah. Amar bar minam dahi, except for that. Right? There, why? Titalia bash le ravrve. Because that's going to be trulia the chavalim avim and chazakim. Which means that we did find chachamim gedolim that do hold like Nachum Amadi. So that means the only thing that we actually paskin like Nachum Amadi is that we paskin like Nachum Amadi that you could ask for whatever you want in Shomea Tefillah and Amida. Ken באמצע עמידה אתה מכיר בשומע תפילה אתה יכול לבקש מה שאתה רוצה. Okay, the Tanya is learned to the Braita. Rabbi Eliezer says, שואל אדם צרכיו ואחר כך יתפלל. A person should ask for whatever he needs and then pray. שנאמר תפילה להניח ידו לפני השם שישפוך שיחו. Which means first the ani is going to pray in whatever he needs. And then afterwards, ישפוך שיחו לפני הקדוש ברוך הוא ואין שיחה לתפילה. שנאמר ויצא יצחק לסוך בשדה. רבי יהושע אומר, no, יתפלל first pray. And then afterwards, ישאל על צרכיו. שנאמר ישפוך לפניו שיחי, צרתיו לפניו אגיד. Which means, first you have to be ישפוך לפניו שיחי. Pray to Hashem. And then, צרתי לפניו אגיד. So the Gemara says, 1 second. Rabbi Eliezer nami aktiv, it's written ישפוך לפניו שיחי. So he says, הכי כמן. ישפוך לפניו שיחי בזמן שצרתי לפניו אגיד. Meaning after I already told you the tzarot. Rabbi Yeshua, it's also written תפילה להניח יעטוף, לפני השם ישפוך שיחו. זה הכי תמן. אם מתי תפילה להני, when am I going to do תפילה להני? זמן שלפני השם ישפוך שיחו. When you're already going to come and you're going to pray the Amidah. So says the Gemara, okay, fine. Meaning, I cannot bring a proof from the Psukim to either or. There's one Pasuk said, תפילה להניח יעטוף, לפני השם ישפוך שיחו. קודם כל בתפילה, ואחרי זה הבעיות שלך. פסוק אחר אומר, הפוך, אשפוך לפניו שיחי, right? First pray to Hashem, and then צרתי לפניו אגיד. Then tell your tzarot to Hashem. So I cannot bring a proof to anything because each one I answered up. But what are you supposed to do then? So he says, right, במאי קמי פלגה. So he says, כדדרש should be some line. דדרש וזה לא מסדר אדם שבחו של מקום, ואחר יפלל. First say the שבח of הקדוש ברוך הוא, and then pray. מנהלה, right? ממשה רבנו. We learn from משה רבנו. תכתיב, השם אלוקים נטע חילות על הרוד עבדך, אגו לך יחזרו, משום יום שומעים משום יסף כמובנותיך, וכתיב בתרי, ברנה וערה את הארץ הטובה. Meaning first you have birkat. That's why, by the way, our Amidah is like that. How does our Amidah start? Birkat HaShevach. We praise Hashem. So we first start the praises, and then we ask the Kadosh Baruch Hu for whatever we need. And obviously we're going to continue tomorrow.